Hey, welcome back to That's What He Said. I'm your host, Natalie, and this is a podcast about dating. Before you watch, make sure you subscribe, follow, like, comment, rate, review, and share the show. Let's find out what he said.
She sent in a story about 3 different guys. And I will say this person, everything is anonymous on here, but just for context, this person was we'll call her an exotic dancer in the past. So that's where these stories are coming from. Okay, here we go. Michelob Ultra guy. In my 20s, I worked at different dance clubs, and I had this one customer who would always come in, and his drink of choice was Michelob. He would pour half out and ask me to pee in the rest because his fetish was walking around the club drinking beer piss. Every time I would see him cheers his boys or talk to someone, I would die. I would die laughing because all I could think about was his breath, and they had no idea. $500 every time. $500 to pee in his beer can. That's weird. That's weird. His fetish was to drink piss out of his beer can. Just drinking piss in general, but like, that's weird as all right. Diaper man. I had this older gentleman as a customer for several years, and I wonder how old he was. And I had this older gentleman as a customer for several years, and he would always want to act like he was a baby. He wanted me to put diapers on him, wipe, hold him like a baby, let him nurse on my I had to buy pacifiers and come into the room as his mom and start talking to him like a baby. It was definitely some weird, but he had several mommy issues. You think? He had several mommy issues and told me he was actually turned on by his mom. Ew. Ew. Okay, gross. He said being a baby brought him back to his childhood. That's creepy. I don't know what else to say. Creepy AF. Like, I have so many questions. What did your mom do to you? Why were you turned on by your mom? Like, so I feel like CPS should have been called. Like, something weird was going on. But regardless, diapers and pacifiers and hold him and wipe. It's the wiping for me. Wow. Okay. The poop wiper. Oh, this is different than the diaper guy. I like to think of myself as fetish friendly. I don't judge people for their weird because if you think about it, there's always a reason why. And sometimes it can help them when they act out their fetish. Okay. Anyways, the managers would always give me the weirdies. And this one dude would ask me to fart on him and want to stick his nose so far up my crack to get the biggest whiff, and then would ask, what the? All right. He would get a whiff. And then he would ask me to so he could watch and then wipe me clean. He would carry a Ziploc bag in his pocket and put the toilet paper in there and take it home to keep. I don't know which one is the worst at this point. So she would go to the bathroom with him. First of all, how do you poop on command? How does that work? So she would go in there and poop and fart on him. And then he would stick his nose so far up her butt and fart on command. Like what? So far up her crack to smell the whiff, get a whiff of and then would wipe her and then take the toilet paper in a Ziploc bag home with him and do God knows what with it at home. All right. I understand the whole like fetish friendly thing, but like this is weird. This is weird. All right, last one from her. Crusher. Do I even have to explain the name? LOL. Something about stilettos men love, but this particular customer loved when I would take the tip of my stilettos and crush and stomp on his and balls. Was that blood I was feeling on my legs? No. Nope. Literally explosive. Don't ask me how his could even manage to, but he loved it and left with a smile every time. Oh my God. Wow. How does that not like hurt beyond like sexual pleasure? Like stilettos on your balls? That makes me think that men are like actually kind of lying about how bad it hurts when you hit them in the balls or kick them in the balls or something, because like this man is getting stomped on by a stiletto and he likes it. Like he's not down bad. He's not like hunched over grabbing his stomach like guys do. So I have a feeling we've been lied to, at least to some extent. All right. Start out with a bang. All right, our next story is an audio recording. Here we go.
All right, so this story is from college. Very long story short. So I'm living up there in Fayetteville, and I started working at the Boys and Girls Club. And I saw this guy all the time from afar, and he would see me, and I thought he was super attractive, but like that was it. Nothing came out of it. So then I was out for my 21st birthday on July 24th, and I was out on Dixon, and he was there, and he came up to me and asked me for my number, and I was like, okay, yeah, sure, like, let's get each other's number. And so from there, we just like text.
This was back when guys actually asked you for your number to your face. The good old days.
Small talk, whatever. And that was it. So then it like progressed, and we started going on dates, and he started bringing me around his friends, or like, to watch him play basketball and all that stuff, and family, cousins, whatever. So later on, I find out he has a kid, but he's like, me and the mom are not together. We're just co-parenting. That's it.
We just discussed this last week with Jared Cozart about the men who hide the fact that they have a kid. Like, that is not okay. You don't start dating someone and not disclose that you have a child. Like, why do people do that? I don't know if women do that too, but like, regardless, that's unacceptable and it's weird. All right, so she found out he had a kid, and he said they were not together, him and the baby mama.
And I was like, okay, whatever. And so we're hanging out like all the time. We work at the same place, so we're hanging out there. And then like he'll come over, we'll eat dinner, or we'll go out to eat, and we'll go do something, and then come back, and he'll stay the night, and then wake up in the morning, and we'll like eat breakfast or go eat, and then I'll go to class, and he goes back to work, and then I go back to work, and it repeats. So like just together all the time. So that just continues for a long time. And throughout that period of time, there were like little instances where I was like, okay, this is kind of weird, but like whatever. For instance, his baby mom had to go take the nursing test. And he said, I'm going to stay the night at her house and help her with our son. And he, at this point, he's like maybe 1.5-ish. And so I kind of like pushed back against that. I was like, no, that's weird. Like, if you're not together, why are you staying at her house? And he was like, I'm going to do what I need to do to take care of my son. And
that's
I was
weird.
like, okay, whatever. Like, who cares? Whatever. And there were like instances kind of similar-ish like that. But like, he always just played it off. And I was dumb. And I was like, okay, that's fine. So time progresses. And now we're like 1.5 years in. And he was at my apartment. We were watching a movie. And I saw his phone light up. And it just like caught my eye. Like, I had never checked his stuff. He never checked mine. Nothing. But like, it just caught my eye. It was right there. And it said Miss Carpenter. And I was like, whatever. Who cares? And we kept watching the movie. And I didn't think anything else of it. But then, like, a couple days later, it, like, popped into my head again. And I was like, that is a little weird. Just because, also, I knew what the baby mom's last name was. And that was who it was. And so I was, like, kind of thinking about it still. And so I just decided, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to Google his name with that name and see what pops up. So I do that. And this is on October 11th. I Google their names. And the first thing that pops up is a wedding registry. And I was like, oh, what in the world? So I click on it and I was like, maybe this is like old or something. And they were going to, since they were having a kid and didn't. No, it's current. And they are due to get married on October 14th. And I was like, no way. Like, what? Okay. So I tell all my friends, and, you know, we go like FBI spy mode. And we are looking at everything we can. Like, I remember one of my friends found her Pinterest account, and there was all kinds of wedding stuff. And one of my other friends found something else, and I was like, oh my gosh. Okay, and this is October 11th, and on the wedding registry, it says the wedding is October 14th. So I call him. I call him, and I'm like, hey, do you play basketball tonight? And he was like, yeah. I was like, oh, come and pick me up. So he's not thinking anything of it. So he comes and picks me up, and I just start going off. And he, of course, starts denying it and is like, no, we were going to get married, but we called it off. And, like, you know, low-key in my mind, I was like, I mean, that kind of makes sense. You know, people call off engagements all the time. And so he was like, we can even call my friend. And, like, he called his friend and was like, bro, didn't me and my baby mama call the wedding off? And, of course, bro code, the dude was like, yeah, like, a long time ago. And he was like, see? And so that kind of left me confused. But, again, then we did more research, and we found that, like, stuff on the wedding registry was currently being bought, like, that day. And so I was like, there is no way people are buying stuff for something that's called off. No way. So that happened. And so, again, this is October 11th, and they're due to get married on the 14th. And I was, like, in turmoil. I'm like, okay, what do I do? Because this has been, like, 1.5 years of this. Not, like, a little fling, like, 1.5 years. 2 separate lives. And so I called the girl, And I told
called
her,
the girl.
and she did not believe me at all until she started asking like very specific questions, and like I could answer them. And she was like, oh my gosh. And like she ended up not being mad at me. She was like, wow, well, thank you for telling me. Like at the beginning, she was so mad at me and like it was my fault. But then she ended up not being mad at me and she was mad at him. So now fast forward, obviously she calls him and goes off and says whatever she said. And he like threatens me with a gun and is like, I'm literally going to kill you. You ruined my life and all this stuff. You messed up my family. All this stuff, even though I had no idea the whole time, and he was the one that messed it up. But I digress.
That part.
So I like had to stay at other people's houses that he didn't know where I was, because even his mom called me and was like, wherever you are, if it's where he knows you are, you need to go.
Wow.
Like, do not be where he knows where you are. And it ended up being this whole entire thing.
Wow.
And then, like, a funny side note, he thought it would be funny and, like, get back at me to put my name on a, like, Arkansas back page or whatever. I forgot what it's even called. And put it on there. And I was getting so many phone calls from, like, these creepo guys. And it was just a whole mess. But yeah, that's the story.
That is next level sociopath. Like, forget narcissist, forget cheater, forget player. No, he is a full-blown sociopath. That is psycho. Literally psycho. And it's unbelievable that people do this kind of stuff, but they do, clearly. Okay, this is another recording.
It's the story. So I got to give you a little bit of background for it to all make sense. So I was dating, not really dating. I had just had a second date with a guy in Atlanta. And I had planned to go to Atlanta, which is about 2 hours from me, to look at cars, because I was looking for a certain car and Atlanta had a bunch. So I purposely planned a day in Atlanta to see him and at the same time look for a car. Well, while I was there, I found the car and I bought it. So when I left the next day, I left my SUV at his work and drove my new car home. Well, 2 days later, me and this guy decided not to see each other anymore. And it was kind of more me, because he just didn't quite know what he believed about God and stuff like that. And it was one of those situations where I was trying to make a puzzle piece fit and it just wasn't going to. So anyway, about a week and a half later, I match with who this story's about. Lived locally. He's actually the first guy that I've really dated, and I mean like more than 3 or 4 dates in my area. All the guys have been in Atlanta, because Chattanooga's pool of dating is freaking trash.
I don't even know where Chattanooga is, honestly.
We hit it off. We go out Thursday night to Topgolf. Saturday, he volunteers to drive me to Atlanta to this guy's workplace and pick up my SUV. And that way I'm able to drive it back home to Chattanooga. So we end up spending that Saturday together, have so much fun, and invites me to church with him the next morning, Sunday.
Love that.
We go to church, and we just are hitting it off. Like, just the same humor. We're sarcastic. Our banter is amazing. Like, sarcasm is, like, perfect. Flirty banter. Like, we just, like, 3 or 4 or 5 days in, and we're, like,
vibing,
finishing each other's sentences and like thinking the exact same things, and
love.
I don't know, it was bit of an intense connection, honestly, in every way. I know I'm supposed to be Christian, and I usually hold myself to a higher standard, but mommy was weak with this one.
No, that's fine. We're all weak.
So I don't even know how to tie this up, but anyway, we are dating, and about the third week, he mentioned to me that he bought me a ring. And I was like, girl, that's not even funny. Like, don't joke about stuff like that. And
An engagement
I'm
ring?
46. He's in his 40s at this point. And we both are dating with very clear intentions that we want a long-term relationship, possibly marriage in the future, and not dating casually. So we both are on the same page with that. And anyway, he mentions a ring. I freak out, and I'm like, I don't even know if I ever want to get married again. I just divorced a year and a half ago, and it was a very traumatic divorce after a long marriage. And so anyway, he's told me that I have to fly out to Phoenix that third week to spend some time with my brother at the Mayo Clinic. And 4 days later, anyway, he dropped me off at the airport, told me he loved me. I told him I loved him. We're 3 weeks in. Okay? When I fall hard.
Okay, same.
I come back, and about a week later, so now we're at 4 weeks, almost a month, about 4.5 weeks into it, I'm talking to my brother. We're really close, and I'm sharing some stuff with him about Parker and possibly some things that could be red flags, like he works a lot, he doesn't have a lot of friends, he doesn't have any family in town, which, I mean, I get that. I'm originally from Indianapolis,
no
California,
friends.
so I don't have family in Tennessee either. But he doesn't have any friends. His phone never ever rang once when I was with him, and we were together a lot. And so I was talking to my brother about that, and then we were talking about like financially he should be a little bit better off than he should be, and that wasn't a deal breaker because I understand he had to start over a couple of times. I've had to start over, so I get it. Anyway, I talked to my brother for about an hour and a half, and after I got off the phone, it was like something hit me in my gut. Like it was the Holy Spirit. I 1000% know. And it just said, run his name on Google. And I have checked out everybody I've dated
Google
through
again.
Been Verified. But I happened to cancel it right before I met Parker, so I didn't have it. I run his name through Google, and right away it says 52 years old.
I'm about to Google him when we're done.
And I was like, wait, what? He told me he was 42 years old. So right away I was like, this can't be right. So I spent about 10 minutes like kind of diving into a rabbit hole, and it was verified, like where he worked through online records. Yeah, he's 52 years old. Was born in 72. Told me he was born in 82.
Huh.
I'm 46. So anyway, yeah, he told me he was
That's
42,
a weird thing
he's
to lie
52.
about. Like, why?
So right away I texted him and I said, hey, just confirming something. Are you 52? And he said, huh? No, I'll call you in a minute. He calls me about 2 hours later, which was weird too, because he usually would call me right away. He said, listen, he said, I tried to tell you the first time that we talked that I was 52, and you were like, no, there's no way, like, you have amazing skin, you don't look 52, you can't be 52, which I can kind of see me doing that, because I'm just kind of like that. I work in a med spa, so I'm passionate about, like, skincare, and I love all of that stuff. And anyway, but still, even if I did say it, he had so many opportunities to come clean with me, and, you know, and explain, why does this app say he's 42 when he's not? So,
Okay, wait. Pause. That has happened to me before, and now I'm kind of like questioning, like, okay, I have so many questions. Like, on this day that he said he told you he was 52, like, the only reason that you wouldn't remember that is if you were drunk. Like, not just like one drink in, but like drunk. So if you were drunk, then maybe that could be understandable. But that actually happened to me as well. I went on a date, fell super hard. This was someone that I knew pretty closely. Maybe I'll tell that story another time. But we went on we were dating. We were like a month in, I want to say, like around the same time frame, like 3-4 weeks. And somehow it came to my attention that he was still married, like he was still legally married. And he was definitely separated from his ex-wife. Like they were completely, she was moved out, everything. But I was under the impression since our first date that they were divorced. But again, didn't Google, should have Googled immediately, didn't, and just believed that. But he did the same thing. He told me, like, oh, you don't remember? Like, I tried to tell you on our first date that basically, I don't remember what he said. Like we haven't started the legal process or something like that, which like nothing had been filed. There was no legal record whatsoever that he was trying to get a divorce from her. And I was just like, oh, like, I don't remember that. Like, I don't remember you saying that. But I guess you did, like, kind of thing, kind of like her. So, and I have never contemplated whether or not he was lying when he said that. But now I kind of think he was, because I definitely would have remembered him telling me, like, oh yeah, I'm still married. Like, we haven't filed for divorce or anything. Like, but I was in the same position as her mentally, where I was like already wrapped up in it, to where I was like, oh, okay, like I could see myself like kind of brushing that off, or like maybe I didn't remember because I had a glass of wine or two, like, because I'm already like wrapped up in him and I already think he is this person over here. But I do think that's a weird thing to lie about. But also, pathological liars don't have reasons for why they lie. Fun fact. But let's keep going with the story.
Do this, she lied to me. That's a trigger. That's a deal breaker. Not dealing with that. And we talked and we talked. We went out to dinner that night. I basically said, give me some time, some space. I need to think this through. Well, in the meantime, my best friend, she is digging. She has put on her investigator hat. She finds out so much stuff.
Yes.
She finds out he's been married multiple times. He had told me 2 times. She finds out he has more than one daughter.
Multiple?
She gets in contact with his ex-girlfriend, who he was with for a year and a half, who they just broke up in March, who he ironically bought a ring for. That's all I know at this point. Anyway, he gets in touch with her, and he gets in touch with his ex-wife, who he divorced in 2021. And she is hearing all of this stuff about how the ex-wife had to get a restraining order against him, how he took out credit cards in her name and ran them up.
No.
Meanwhile, I'm in the bed and I'm sobbing. I am so disappointed and so sad and so heartbroken, because I liked this guy so much. Like, he checked so many things off for me. He was, I think I already said this, he just was so kind and so generous. He acted like he adored me. Servant's heart, our chemistry. I mean, I know we weren't married, but I felt like Jesus came upon us in the bedroom. Like, it was that much fire.
Wait, what?
Like, it was insane. We'd be like, Jesus, you had to have been here during that. Okay, anyway. Too much info.
Never heard that
so
before.
I am so upset, because I liked who he was, like, besides all the other stuff. So anyway, meanwhile, he's texting me, please give me another chance. I'll never lie to you again. Like, you're everything to me. You're everything that I want. Like, I just know the Lord put us together. He sent me a picture of the ring he got me and said, just so you know, this is always going to be waiting
Oh,
for you.
please.
And I was like, stop. I don't want to hear from you. No contact.
Whatever.
Next day, my friend, she sends me some screenshots of her text conversation with his ex-girlfriend. Well, Peter had gone to her house that night, the night of the day that we broke up. And tried to get her to go out with him. He said he didn't love me and broke up with me and wanted her back and wanted to work on that relationship.
Oh my God.
And then sends me, she sent Leah, my friend, a screenshot of the text where her sent her a picture of the same
Of course.
ring, girl.
Of course he did.
Sent her a picture
That
of
does
the
not
ring
surprise me
later
at all.
that night, I guess after he had already been to her house. And she had said, no, I want nothing to do with you. He sent her a picture of the ring on his bed and said, it's still waiting for you. Please give me another chance. Girl, it was the same ring that he sent me hours before this. Same ring. Same ring. Turns out, this was the ring that he picked out because he was going to propose to her.
Shut up.
And then he tells me he bought me this ring, and it's showing.
It was
sending me
her
pictures saying it's
ring
waiting
the
on
whole
me. He'll
time.
never give up on me. Yes, girl. So
Wow.
that was all that drama. Days later, me and Jenny, the ex, we start talking. He had told me he was a ghostwriter, and she said she had never, ever, ever heard him play the guitar or never saw him writing songs. He had sent me like 6 songs by this point and said he had written them all for me. And he also had 2 guitars hanging up on his wall. She said she had never seen his guitars. And they've been together a year and a half. He lived with her.
That's weird.
So I was like, gosh, damn, is he lying about this too? So anyway, we break up. 3 weeks go by. He's texting me every single day, begging me, saying he's miserable without me. He's losing weight. He can't sleep. His coworkers are worried about him. He just loves me so much. He'll never do that again to me. I'm the love of his life. I'm everything he wants. In the meantime, his manager, because he had a second job where he managed a New Balance, she calls me and she says, I know he's lied to you, but some of the things you're hearing aren't true. Supposedly his ex-wife, the one that took out a restraining order, is batshit crazy. She said none of that happened. She knew her during that time. And she's like, she never took out a restraining order. She never could. Cops would look at her and think she was crazy. So anyway, that ended up not being true, but even still, he lied to me about his age. So anyway, we decided to talk one night in the park. He charmed his way back in. You know, said he was sorry he lied about his age. He actually had been married 4 times, not 2 times. He came clean to me about everything, he said. He kept saying, you know more about me than anybody. I just want to start fresh with you. And so I gave him 10 days, and last week he was over, and we were talking about counseling, and my spirit again nudged me and said, ask him about counseling, how it's going. And I did. He got defensive. Long story short, he lied about that too. He said he had been going since March, and he finally confessed he's only been once, and it was just last week. So anyway, we are now broken up, and I have moved on. He is now blocked. But that is the story. The ring part just about did me in.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, it's crazy out there.
Wow. I have so many thoughts. Let me collect. Yeah, the ring is... I felt like I saw the ring part of the story coming. Like I could foreshadow it. Because I just feel like I've heard that story so many times of guys like reusing rings in situations like that. But regardless, it's disgusting. It's pathetic, honestly. Like, it's really pathetic. Yeah, I can totally relate to like the super high. Like, you think that you have fallen into this fairy tale, like literally a fairy tale with like the intense initial connection, like even like the traveling to see each other, that adds this element of like we're fighting for each other, and then going to church together and like feeling like this relationship is like blessed. Like, I know she joked about like Jesus or whatever, but like truly like thinking that, and then thinking that he wants to propose. Like, I'm sure, I can't speak for her, but I'm sure even if you've been divorced and like been burned, that it would still like, you know, give you butterflies thinking that this guy that you're falling head over heels for wants to marry you. Like, yeah. I don't know how I feel about the ex-wife part of the story. I feel like there's more to that. Like somebody's not telling the truth. It's hard for me to believe that I don't know. It's hard for me to believe that she was the crazy one in that relationship. I don't know. I don't know enough, but something there seems off. First of all, I love Google. That is a new rule for me. Yeah, I need to do it right now. I need to Google somebody. Google people immediately. Like immediately start Googling. I actually don't know his last name. I have hanging out with someone, like going on a date next week, and I think it's a date. We're hanging out. So I need to find out his last name and immediately Google. If you know someone who can do background checks, do background checks or get the app or whatever she said it's called. Number one. Number two, the talking to the ex. Now that's tricky because you can't really do that while you're dating him because that's psycho. But I wish it wasn't. Like, I wish that was normal. I actually wish that was super normal because number one, I would save so many girlies from so much trauma. Like literally, if there were girls coming to me, I would be like, let's sit down. This is a seated conversation, but it would like help them. And if I had exes that I could have gone to and like sat down and talked to them, which I have, stay tuned for the end of the season. I will be sitting down with my ex's ex. You'll get to see that. But yeah, that always helps like clarify things. But unfortunately, like we don't ever get to do that until after the fact. I totally empathize with letting him back in and giving him a second chance. I know that that can make us sometimes feel really stupid, and it has definitely made me feel stupid or like just pathetic. Definitely regretful, but I totally empathize with how it happens. Like even after lying, even after cheating, like it's just, it can happen. Also, moral of the story, listen to your gut. Like when you have that spirit stirring in your gut, we have to learn how to listen to it. Like that's truly a skill to master, is leaning into that and following it. And a huge part of that is healing your past wounds. Like I definitely have learned that in certain relationships, your nervous system can be so activated that you can't hear those still small voices in your subconscious. You can't follow your intuition because it's so loud in your mind because your nervous system is so activated. And when I say your nervous system is activated, things about this person, like she said, she was trigger fear in your nervous system. But the problem is fear and excitement have the same bodily responses. So a lot of times we mistake fear in our body, our body telling us to be afraid, for excitement. And when that's going on in our body, we cannot focus enough. We cannot calm down enough. Our ability to discern like goes out the window. And I totally empathize with that. And that's something that I'm super working on right now in myself, is regulating my nervous system. Anyway, that my heart goes out to her. That sucks. So, yeah, I like to be positive and be hopeful about men and about finding true love, but like this kind of stuff, so many of us have been through it, and it's just, I mean, even the story before, very similar, being lied to, a whole other life going on in the background, and then gaslighting when I mean, it's just, it's crazy how often it happens. And I wish that I had some male stories today, but unfortunately nobody sent them in. So next time I need stories from guys, because we need to hear both sides of the story. But yeah, that's just wild. I will close out with a quick, somewhat funny story. So this was a guy that I met on Bumble. I'll call him Bumble Guy. This is the one and only guy that I ever actually dated from a dating app. This was back when they were relatively new. This was like 5-6 years ago. And we met, we completely hit it off. It was also a very intense connection. He was super attractive. We had great chemistry. He's really smart, funny. Like we were just like clicking on all cylinders. I think it was our first date. I'm pretty sure it was our first date. We were at a wine garden. No, beer garden. We're at a beer garden. And so it was just like an outdoor, like nice patio bar. In the evening, there was like nobody there. It was a weekday. So it was basically like just us. And literally we're like vibing, clicking. Like it felt like we had been dating for a year already on the first date. We actually ended up doing, I don't even know how we came to it, but it was honestly so cute. And I thought about playing, like clipping in the video, but I can't because y'all will see who he is. And yeah, I can't do that. As people will know who he is, I'm sure, being in Houston, like, yeah, I'm not gonna do that. But we ended up doing the thing from Dirty Dancing, like the lift at the end of the movie. We did that right in the middle of the beer garden, and I got one of the waitresses to film it. And it was definitely not as poised as it is in the movie, but we did it nonetheless. So that was cute. And then we dated for, I want to say, a couple months, but pretty early into it, I started to notice some weird things. Again, should have listened to my gut, but I was young and kind of dumb. And had he been divorced? I kind of think he had. I'm not sure. I don't remember. But the main weird thing, to be honest, is that he definitely has bipolar disorder. And I definitely am a big advocate for mental health. I don't like to discriminate against those people or label those people, but it was very obvious to me that he had bipolar disorder. I'm very familiar with this disease. I've also studied it. It was obvious. And I also asked him one time, have you ever been prescribed mood stabilizers? And he said yes. And I said, do you take them? And he said no. I was like, okay, well, that solves that mystery. So there was just some weird encounters where just like in a split moment, he would completely turn into like a weird, depressive, mean person. Like just flip of a switch. There were also some things that I questioned, like if he was being truthful. Like he told me that he was a Christian, which is something that's really important to me. And like we went to church together once or twice. But then there was a day where he asked me, like, what does it mean to get saved, or what is the Holy Spirit, or something like that, which is a great question to ask if you are seeking out Christianity. And I answered the question the best that I could with the gospel, but that came as a shock to me because I was under the impression that he already was a Christian and understood, our religion and was practicing it. And that question would allude to the fact that that's not true. So anyways, there were some questionable things that went on. And then there was also a day that he stood me up. That was the one and only time that I've actually been legit stood up for a date. Like got ready, sitting, waiting on the couch for him to pick me up, and nowhere to be found. And he called like hours later and said he had fallen asleep. And I just think that that's complete bull. Like whether or not that's true does not matter to me. Like if he was lying, inexcusable. If he was telling the truth, inexcusable. Like if you have plans with someone in a couple hours or whatever, stay awake. Or if you need to take a little power nap, set your alarm. Or if you're tired, get an energy drink. Like, you don't stand someone up, especially like we were dating. Not that it's okay to do it on a first date, but it wasn't like I was a stranger. So anyways, that pissed me off. That was the one and only time, hopefully last time, that I was ever stood up for a date. But that was another weird thing. And then there was some sort of argument that we were having where like he had loosely made plans with me or something like that. I honestly don't remember the details, but I remember trying to text and call him like, hey, like, what's the situation? Like, what are we doing? Something like that. He called me back and he said that he was like heading out on a trip with his friend, like a guy friend. And I was like, okay, like, it was just, again, a weird thing. Like, I don't know. And so like this very inconsistent, unstable behavior. And he called me incessant. And then I thought he said obsessive. And he was like, no, I said incessant. I know you're going to need to Google that word because you don't know what it is. And I was like, oh, so now you're just deliberately insulting me and putting me down. Like, that's great. So that was the end of that, actually, was when he called me incessant. And I was just like, okay, well, that's, goodbye. He went on his trip. I didn't talk to him again until, I want to say 6 months to a year later, like not too far down the line, I was in a relationship with someone else. And I was at a bar in Houston, those Houston bars, ran into him. I don't run into people a lot, to be honest, especially back then. But I ran into him randomly at a bar. Like, literally, I was up to order at the bar, and I look over to my left, and he's there, like, a few people down, and he smiles at me. He was in one of his good moods. And I smiled back. I mean, it had been a while, and so all, of course, like, the feel-good feelings and memories are coming back. We start talking to each other, and then we ended up talking to each other for a while that night. Like, just literally just talking. And like, my friends left, and I probably shouldn't have been doing that since I had a boyfriend, but I also was close to ending things with this boyfriend as well. Like, it was not, whatever. I did it. So we were talking for a while, and then I called an Uber to go home. He walked me out to the Uber. He was drunk, and I'm getting in the Uber, and I went to give him a hug goodbye, and he like tried to kiss me. I pushed him off, and I was like, what are you doing? Like, I told you I have a boyfriend. Why are you trying to kiss me? And he, well, sorry, like, whatever. The Uber driver was like laughing. He's probably like this guy. So I get in my Uber, I go home, whatever. And he sends me a voice note through DM, and he's all drunk talking. He was crying in the voice note. And he was saying that he regretted ending things with me. He told me that he loved me. He's like, I love you, Natalie. Just like that. And it was honestly pretty sad. It made me feel good. So anyway, yeah, he sent me that DM, and I know I didn't send him a voice note back. I don't remember if I responded or not, but that was a one-time instance. And then fast forward again, I see on Instagram that he was seeing someone else. I do remember getting kind of like upset about that, just because, I don't know, you're seeing an ex, someone that you really liked, be with somebody else, whatever. And shortly after that, I see that she got pregnant. Shortly after that, I see that they got married at the courthouse. So I was like, wow, glad it wasn't me, honestly. But I was like, okay, I really don't care. Like, I completely got over him, got past it. I was just like, I wish them the best. Over the years, would see they had their kid. They seemed to be happily married. They had another kid. And then not long after that, I see that it looks like they broke up. And this is through just like trolling a little bit on social media when I would see certain things pop up. Oh, and actually, I think I found out that they had split up when he DM'd me, because he sent me a DM sometime after them splitting up, and because his account was back to like, she wasn't in any pictures or anything, and he said, hey friend. That was his DM. And I did not respond. In my head, I was like, friend? Are we friends? Anyway, I didn't respond. Don't remember if I was dating someone at the time or not, but that's beside the point. That DM was maybe like not that long ago. I want to say like no more than 2 years ago. And then this is just the gift that keeps on giving, Bumble Guy. You're just the gift that keeps on giving. So then I got a message from him through Facebook this time. And this was relatively recently. This has to be within the last year. He sent me a Facebook message that said, "How are you still single?" My least favorite question. If you've been following the pod at all, I have said that multiple times. That is my least favorite question on the planet. And I think it's so rude. But that's what he said. Not, "Hey, how are you?" Nothing. How are you still single? My response was, and this is actually has been my new response every time moving forward since that day, is, I don't know, God's plan, I guess, LOL. And he didn't reply, which I thought was weird. Like, I was like, are you trying to start a conversation with me? I don't know. I don't even know why I replied to that message. I think it was just because I was so irritated. Like, I had to like respond because I just literally hate that question. So yeah, so that was that. Now, keeps on giving. Last week, I saw him at the gym. This was at Lifetime Fitness. I was in the cafe, minding my own damn business. I'm literally eating my Southwest bowl, sitting at the table. Like, I wasn't even working on my laptop, nothing. I'm literally sitting there eating, getting ready to go work out. And he comes around. He definitely could have, he saw me at some point because he was sitting back here, like in a back corner with a view of basically the whole cafe. I went up and ordered. I never saw him. Went and ordered, went over, sat down, waited for my food. And so he obviously walked intentionally right by me, very obviously. Like, the door was literally like the opposite way. Like, he could have gone the other way. Comes around. Okay, I'm sitting at sort of like a high top counter type table, and comes around, walks right in front of me, like 2 feet in front of me. Okay. And so I look up, and he's like this. He's walking, okay, and he goes, looks me dead in the eyes. He doesn't do this, but he's literally like, and then does like the tiniest smile ever, like keeps walking. And it took me a couple seconds. Like, it was a solid like 3 seconds of him looking me dead in the eyes. And it took me probably 2 seconds to register who he was. I have not seen him in years. And I also have never seen him at that gym before. So was not expecting to see him. And it was just, sometimes when you see someone unexpectedly, like, it takes a minute and you're like, oh, hey. So it took me like 2 seconds to register. And then, so I'm just like eating, and I'm like looking up like this. And then I was like, by the time it registered to me who he was, because I did, when I looked up and saw him, my only like initial thought was like, wow, he's hot, because he is. Honestly, he's really hot. Like, he's always been really hot, and he's still really hot. Yeah. So my initial thought was, oh my gosh, he's so hot. Like, almost like stopped in my tracks. And again, like, just that intense moment, just like the first time. And so anyway, so he, by the time it registered who he was, his back was already turned to me because he had like kept walking. And I literally go, you're not going to say hi? Just like that in the cafe. And the girl next to me looks at me like, can you shut up? And he didn't turn around. This man kept walking, like acting like he didn't hear me. And I'm like, excuse me, sir, you literally just walked by me on purpose, stared into my soul. And the fact that I'm saying, hey, you're not going to say hi, you're going to pretend like you don't hear me. Like, what? That's so weird. That is so weird. Yeah. Like, what? Plus, like, if there wasn't some huge, like, he's not some horrible, tragic ex that I was with for years. He's not my ex-husband. Like, you can say hi. Like, it's really not that big of a deal. You know, there was no beef. Like, there was no, he was the one sliding into my DMs three times over these past several years. Like, that's weird. Anyways, so I thought he left the gym. But he didn't. So I was working out and I saw him. And number one, he was on the machine I wanted to use. Number two, I was like, I'm not going to keep doing this like weird eye contact across from the gym. If you know me, you know that I'm very comfortable with confrontation. I low-key kind of love it. But yeah, so I was like, oh, I'm definitely going to go say something. So I walk up to him. He's on the belt squat machine, for those of you who lift weights. He's on the belt squat. So he's squatting. And I kind of like tuck my head in like this. And I'm like, hey, super friendly. Because I literally just wanted to like, to me, it's definitely like a gym thing. Like if there's someone that I'm making awkward eye contact, that there's a weird tension, like it throws off my gym vibe. Like I'm trying to have a good time. I'm trying to get some endorphins flowing. Like I don't want to have this weird stress energy around me. So like, let's just say hi and then move on. So I was like, hey, and he like went like this with his earphone and he was like, oh, hey, but he like didn't stop working out. He like kept squatting and, he literally, oh, hey, like, you already saw me. Why are you acting like, oh, it's you? Like, you literally were staring at me the whole time I was stretching 20 minutes. You kept looking at me. I saw you. So he's like, yeah, oh, hey. And I was like, how are you? And he's like, again, still squatting. He's like, I'm okay. So this time he was in one of his depressive, weird moods. I was immediately having flashbacks of his like mood swings when I heard him talk like that. Oh, I'm okay. Gross. So, I was like, okay. Cause then it was getting awkward cause he was like, he was not really acknowledging me. Like he didn't like pause from the squat or like smile or like, you know, how are you doing? So he clearly didn't want to talk to me. So I said, okay, like you don't want to say hi? And he goes, no. You literally just, so all you wanted to do was stare into my eyeballs for 3 seconds and walk off. Okay. All right then. So I literally go, oh, okay. And I walked off. Wasn't going to bother asking him how many sets he had left at that point. I mean, obviously it wasn't worth it. So I wasn't going to use the machine. So yeah, so then I go over to a squat rack to use a normal squat rack instead of the belt squat. And I realized he was like directly in my line of sight. So I was like, let me move down further. So I went to a squat rack further down. Ended up working out because I ended up meeting and talking to a guy that was cute and nice. It seemed normal, keyword. So that's the guy that I'm actually going to hang out with next week. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, so I like scoot down. I'm doing my squats over there. And then I see he moved over to the free weight section, which was now in my new line of sight. And I'm just like kind of trying to ignore it. But I saw him sitting on a bench with a girl. Clearly it was his girlfriend or whatever. And they're arguing. Like I could totally, again, having flashbacks from when I dated him of like the gaslighting arguments and like the passive aggressiveness. And she's clearly upset. And he is clearly upset and being rude to her. Like at one point I saw him actually get up and walk away from her like mid conversation. But also, why are you arguing like that in public? Like it had so much toxic energy. And I was just doing my squats like, wow. glad it's not me once again. And so then she walks off after their argument ended or whatever. She walks off and she was kind of coming my way. And I had a split second moment of wanting to wave her over and tell her, like, look, girl, get out now. Get out as soon as you can. Trust me. Like, he needs help. He needs clinical help. He needs something because trust me. But I didn't do that. But she looked at me. She was like looking at me. I don't know if that was a coincidence or not. I don't know if that's why they were fighting or not, because I had gone up to him and said hi. I have no clue why they were fighting, nor do I really care. But she did kind of like stare at me for a second. I was like, I'm just doing my squats. So anyway, that was that. And then I was out by the pool and laying out, getting my tan on. It was a GTL day. And I saw them leaving the pool with his 2 kids. One big happy family is what it looked like. So yeah, so that's that story. Bumble Guy, the gift that kept on giving. Thank you all so much for tuning in to today's episode of That's What He Said. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I hope you're taking away something valuable that will benefit your dating life. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please give this show a follow, rate, and review. And if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, like this video, and most importantly, comment below because I want to hear what you said. See you next time. Thank you.